Yo, what's going on guys, it's Rest. In this video, I want to go over my thoughts on Outriders. The full game has launched and I've gotten to level 29 and I've played through the whole campaign. From the title, this is just my biggest game impression, so we're talking about campaign, just normal systems, everything you would normally do in the base game. I have not gotten into the end game yet, but you can expect to see a in-game video just like this one, probably later this week. Now if you're new here, I just want to say really quick, I'm on the road to 10,000 subs. I'm currently at 7.5 as recording this, so if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing. It really helps me out and I would love to have you on the road to 10K. Now, as a disclaimer, I am not an Outriders ambassador. I did not get to play the game early, so this is just me coming at you, playing it at 12 the next day because I played it on PC and not even at midnight. So I was one of the last people to actually get to play the game, and I'm going to try to let that not influence my opinions in any way. But just like many of you, I was excited for Outriders. The demo was very, very fun, and I was ready to see what the full game had to offer. Now, going into this, I wasn't thinking too much. Like I said, I did enjoy the demo, so I was expecting to at least have the same amount of fun as I did in the demo. I wasn't expecting this to be the next Borderlands or Destiny. Now, speaking of those games, a lot of people are comparing Borderlands and Destiny to this game, and I honestly would say that this is its own unique game. It does have similarities from a lot of looter shooters and even gameplay similarities from things like Gears of War, but that is not a bad thing. I honestly think it's a good thing if it's not similar to these games, because every game that comes out is similar to these games normally dies off very quickly, and I could definitely see Outriders staying for a while due to the fact that not only is it fun, it is its own unique looter shooter, and I think that will keep people around. Now, I'm actually going to do this differently. I'm going to dive into the negatives first, because I honestly believe that there are way less negatives than there are positives, and we can just go on and get them over with. So the first glaring issue for most people is that the servers are down, or if you're playing on PC, the PC version just does not run correctly. Ever since the launch of the game came out, a lot of people have been having server issues. Even as a recording this video, servers are still down, and I know this will make some people turn away from the game, but honestly, that doesn't even affect me that much, because literally I feel like every single game that comes out now always has server issues. You either can't log into the game, or you're put into a queue that is just an insane number, and like I said, it just happens every single game. So it really doesn't affect my opinion whatsoever. I was expecting fully to have server issues with this game. I'm honestly not sure at this point why people think going into the game that they aren't going to have server issues. Now, I do understand the fact that these games have been in development for a long time. You would think that these problems have been solved, but with everything going on in the world right now, I definitely understand why there are issues. I honestly think the only game that's came out that I can remember recently that's fully online and doesn't have server issues was Apex Legends, and that came out a while ago at this point, which is kind of crazy. But that game literally launched with like no announcement and had no server issues, which is crazy. But games that are getting announcements and hyped up always have server issues at launch. But yeah, with that aside, I'm sure they're going to get resolved soon, and we'll all be playing again and having a blast. The other negative that's not dealing with server issues is the cutscenes. Now, they did fix a lot of the screen shaking issues and cutscenes being locked at 30 frames, which is good, but sometimes the audio does not sync up really well with the cutscene. I did not notice this too much. Like, I played through the whole campaign and I only noticed this a couple times, but the final cutscene, which I'm not going to spoil, that's why you just see generic gameplay in this video, and we'll get into why I'm not going to spoil it in a little bit. But the final cutscene was super not synced up. There was people showing the screen where voice lines are coming from other characters, so that would make it when the character that was saying their voice line, where you could hear it when they talk, their mouth would just be moving, then another character would be saying something. It was really bad. Like, I'm not even gonna even try to like sugarcoat it. It was not good at all. Every other cutscene throughout the game was fine. I had a little iffy moments that was a little not synced up. It was just the final cutscene, which is probably the one you don't want it to happen to, was super not synced up. It was kind of crazy, honestly. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Rez, this is a looter shooter. Everybody's playing to get in game. Most people are going to skip the cutscenes anyway. No one really cares about the story. So why is that even that big of a deal? And I'm actually going to segue that into a positive statement in saying that I was surprisingly shocked at how decent this campaign was. I was not expecting for the campaign to be super interesting. You know, most looter shooter games come out, they have an okay campaign. They're nothing extravagant story-wise. Destiny might be an exception now, which is funny to say because it used to have an awful story, but now, you know, it's decent. Borderlands 2 is an exception. I know Borderlands 3 is a question for a lot of people, but like I was saying, most of these games comes out, the stories, you know, are not bad, but they're definitely not top tier. Now, this story is also not top tier, but I honestly would say that it is definitely above average. I was actually interested in a lot of these characters and the way the story was going. Now, again, these are my opinions. I cannot speak for everyone on this. I'm sure some people are gonna hate the campaign and think it's probably the worst thing ever. But from my standpoint, and I've played a lot of story-driven games, I actually would say this one is very, very interesting. If you actually go to the general tab and you see all the characters, even from side quests or main quests, I can specifically pinpoint the characters and tell you exactly what they did in the story and why they were important. You know, in most looter shooter games, you can't do that. There's going to be some random characters that you just probably don't even remember, or you remember seeing them but not actually like what they did. But in this game, every single character matters, and the story behind a lot of the characters are actually pretty interesting. There's a lot of twists and turns and a lot of foreshadowing through the whole campaign, and like I said, I'm not spoiling the campaign because I actually think a lot of people should play it, but it really makes it enjoyable. It took me about 10 hours to beat the campaign. This was me running through the campaign. I didn't do any side quests, and that was under level for some boss fights, which made it pretty interesting. And that is the fact that this game is actually somewhat hard. This is not a game that caters to you. It's definitely not Dark Souls level of hard or anything, but it's not like super easy. Yes, if you get a decent weapon going, you can kind of tear through some enemies, but in some of these boss fights, you know, it took me a couple tries to actually beat them. Now, I don't know if this is just me being bad, but I do see a lot of people are saying that the boss fights are kind of a struggle, and that's because they are. Like, when you kill the boss finally after wiping a couple times, you feel very good. Like, it's like, I actually beat this, and you know, it's a very good feeling. Now, with that being said, the ways that you would make it easier to fight is to, you know, change your mods up, change your skills, everything like that. And I found myself throughout the whole campaign respecing my skill points a lot based on gear I was getting, or just in any scenario that I needed to do. I actually am at a point now where I ended up having a Ash build. I'm on the Pyromancer. I can pretty much stop everything that distracts with Ash, make them vulnerable, and they're just stuck there for a while. But going through the campaign, I had like a burn based build where I would literally just burn everything and just run around till they died, because I was at a point in the game where I was really under leveled and stuff was kind of hard, so I was just letting the burn kill things. And then, like, at the beginning of the game, I had a, you know, actual skill based build where my skills are doing a lot of damage, and it was really crazy. And most looter shooters, you normally just stick to one path, and when you get to max level, that's when you start tweaking stuff around. But I literally was doing it on the leveling process, and you can respec for free in the actual skill tree. It's not like a paid thing you have to do at a home system. You can literally respec anytime you want to and change up your skills anytime you want to, which is really cool. And it makes me want to try different things out due to how accessible that it is to just change everything up. You know, like I was saying with mods, if you get a piece of gear that has a mod on it that's extremely powerful based on whatever skill that you have, I would literally equip that skill and then try to take my class points around that, so I would get more cooldown rate, more damage with it, or anything, just the utility to make my weapons better. If it was like an explosive skill, would give you more damage, anything like that. And it's really cool to see that. Sure, once we get to in-game, which I'll probably talk more about in the in-game video, there are going to be builds that are pretty much, you know, set in stone. Use these skills with this armor and you're going to be extremely powerful. But right now, it's kind of like free. You can just do whatever you want to do, and everything seems to be powerful. And those builds I was just talking about, you can't expect to see videos on those builds, so definitely be sure to stick around if you want to see those. But enough with the campaign and difficulty of the game. Let's just talk about the overall systems in the game. The crafting system is amazing. It's super simple. The way it works is you can simply just take a mod off and put another mod on. If you have a legendary or, you know, purple set of gear, you have two mods. You can select which mod you want to change, which will lock the other mod in, but you can constantly change this to whatever you want to. It's no randomness. You literally can just go select whatever mod you want to that you have if you dismantled it, and you can put it on there. It's definitely, like I was saying, with builds, going to make stuff way more interesting, way more accessible, and I cannot wait to play around with more of this once I get into the deep of the end game. Then we could talk about the gunplay. A lot of people had problems in the demo that the gunplay was just not as fun, and I'm not going to lie to you and say that it feels significantly better, because it still feels somewhat the same as the demo, but it does feel better. They did fix some of the issues. I still found myself just having trouble getting into cover or rolling somewhere that I didn't choose to roll. But with that aside, like, the game gunplay itself, just actually shooting the weapons, feel extremely good. You feel really powerful, and you actually play a part in what's going on in the fight. It's not just a get behind the wall and shoot. You can get in cover and shoot, or if you have a build going for you, you can actually just run around, since you heal all the time pretty much based on whatever class you're playing, and you can just be able to just run and gun. It's really fun, and I like the way that they have it set up. Another thing graphical wise is that motion blur slider is a godsend. In the demo, you didn't have that. I think they might have added it towards the end of the demo, but in the full game now, that motion blur slider, it makes the game look crisp. If you can actually get the game to start working on your PC, it is buttery smooth. I would honestly say it is as smooth as Destiny is. I don't think graphics wise the game looks as good as Destiny, but for a lot of people graphics aren't even a selling point anymore, and for me it's not either. I much prefer frame rate. In the frames, if your game is working, now we can get back to the first negative of the game with the PC version at least. If your game is working, it looks really smooth and it's super fun to play. Now I'm trying to think of other stuff base game wise, but I honestly think that might cover it all. We've talked about crafting, we've talked about the gameplay itself, the graphics of the game, the campaign, you know, the story, the difficulty of the game. Obviously, the launch issues are going to be getting resolved. They're working hard. They're tweeting about it constantly. That's another thing I will say. I'm very happy to see that their Twitter account and just other accounts are actively responding, tweeting, sending us updates, because a lot of game developers do not do this. And even if the game's not working, it is nice to see that they are working on it and not just leaving us in the dust. But like I was saying in the beginning, I will have an in-game video, so be sure to stick around if you want to see that. If you did enjoy this video, it's going to be the exact same style where I just go in with my raw thoughts and just tell you everything that you want to hear. But yeah, that's going to do all for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.